So today I am talking with Caroline Ferguson of the UK. And
Hello.
Caroline has a business called Caroline Ferguson Mindset Training. Now,
Yes.
Caroline is a very Renaissance kind of gal. She's got achievements in all sorts of areas. And I'm going to get into asking you about mindset and how that impacts our business and as well as how it affects our business. I'm assuming that it also has wider ramifications in terms of our life, our health, our relationships. But one of the things that just totally blew me away when I first started talking to Caroline was to find out that Caroline is actually this year's gold medalist, the champion. She is the reigning queen in an international screenwriting category of comedy. I totally screwed that up. This woman is like the top for this year screenwriter in the comedy category for England. Woo!
Well, yeah. Well, it's just one contest. It's a Page International Screenwriting Contest, and I've once a year or so, usually when wine has been taken, I have to say, I kind of remind myself that I used to be a screenwriter by looking to see what contests are open, and then I throw one of my old screenplays at it. So I did this and then kind of totally forgot that I'd put it in. And people really, they send their scripts off to to critiques, and they spend lots of money getting their screenplays ready. And I just kind of went, I'm a screenwriter, and I threw it in. And then it just kept passing through all the categories and through all the kind of stages of the competition. And last October, on my birthday, I discovered I'd won the Comedy Gold Award.
Wow.
Thank
you, wine.
Yeah, thank you, wine. And it was the thing is that it's so not a kind of what you would imagine to be a comedy winning screenplay these days. It's 15 years old. It's a really middle of the road, middle class rom-com. It's so kind of not cool. And to find out that it had won over all these zombie comedy stuff, it's like, what? But no, it was a lovely surprise for my birthday. And I've got a month left as the medal winner, so I really ought to get this damn thing out.
Squeeze that lemon, baby. And speaking of that, is that a bit not mindset? It occurs to me as I'm hearing you talk about it, that is quite the achievement. I think anybody would just be amazed to think that they had national recognition, international recognition for what they'd achieved in their field. But you're saying, oh, it's just a little. Is that not part of mindset, Caroline?
I guess what would be part of everything is mindset. Everything is mindset. And if I were really kind of in that niche and in that zone for screenwriting, I would have been working that script for the last year. But where my attention and my focus and my mindset has been is on mindset training. Because, for 99 hours out of 100, that's kind of where my excitement and my focus are at the moment. And I think that, our energy follows our focus. So it's all mindset. But I think that a few years ago, 10 years ago, my mindset would have been on thrashing that screenplay for as much as it was worth, getting it round to absolutely everybody. Whereas now my mind is kind of going, I've only got a month left. I ought to kind of get it round to a few people. But because my focus is on other things that are really exciting me at the moment, that's where my energy follows.
So before we get into all the exciting things that you've got on your plate, what was that path that took you from screenwriting and comedy to mindset training?
And the rest September. Well, I discovered relatively late in life, I'm 57, 58 in a month or so. So relatively late, I retrained as a cognitive behavioural hypnotherapist, and I realised quite early on that I wasn't really going to be a great therapist. So that's how I ended up as a mindset trainer for really high potential sensitive leaders. But at that point in my life, I had been circling around loads of different activities, and screenwriting was probably the one that held my attention for the most amount of time. But I didn't feel as if I was making a difference in the world, and I always had this feeling, which I meet in so many of my clients, we kind of meet on that level of this feeling of I was born for something more. I'm supposed to be making a difference. I'm supposed to be having an impact for good. I'm supposed to be, having this positive effect on people or situations or things or the planet, and I'm just not doing it. It's just not happening. And I didn't really know for many years. I didn't really delve too deeply into that. But there was always this kind of drumbeat going on of you're just not making the difference. And so there's this meaningfulness that's missing. And I think meaningfulness is such a vital quality for me, and so vital for so many of the entrepreneurs that I work with, because, that's kind of why they go into business, because they want to make that difference. And I just wasn't doing it. And it took me until I was 50 to finally find out what that difference was. And that it was about combining my skills, my experience, my natural talents with a load of learning about how the mind works. So
Yeah.
it all kind of came together in this beautiful, perfect storm. And then I found out, my true north. I found out what I'm supposed to be and the difference I'm supposed to make. But I still have this, I am a chaser of squirrels. And I suppose you could call it a multi-potentialite, but it's also, I am something that's called a high sensation seeker. And I discovered this when I was delving into highly sensitive. I discovered I'm a highly sensitive person. I didn't even know that was a thing. And when I was working through what that means to be a highly sensitive person, I also discovered that I'm this other thing called a high sensation seeker. And that means I need to do lots of different things. I need to be constantly chasing the new, the varied, the intense experiences. So that has kind of shaped my life. I've done lots and lots of different things. I'm also a business communications consultant, but screenwriting was definitely the most fun, although the most frustrating, because most screenwriters die of starvation, until I discovered mindset training. So now the screenwriting is kind of creative hobby rather than this all-consuming passion that it was. It was never going to be my thing for life because it didn't create that difference.
Right.
So that's a roundabout way of describing how I got here to this.
Well, that kind of lays out the broad field of elements that are a part of who it is you are and what you bring to the table. I can't help it. Just the word hypnosis, what? You are falling asleep. That's grabbing me. You got, what? Hypnosis? So hypnotherapy.
Yeah, I'm a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist. Yeah.
Does that play into, is there an element of that in what you're doing now?
All the time.
Really?
All the time, yeah. All of my one-to-one clients and also the groups that I work with, hypnosis is a core element in what I do because it makes, one, it's a lovely thing to do and it's a lovely thing to experience, but it makes the work that we do, the process of the mindset training process, the steps that we go through to try and uncover the limiting beliefs that are holding people back. That's essentially what the process is about. It's about developing self-awareness, understanding what the stories are that we're telling ourselves, about the world, about other people, about our projects, about our capabilities. And it's about reshaping those stories. So that is the mindset training process. And then hypnosis actually embeds the positive messages more deeply, more quickly, and it helps us to kind of do some of the deeper, darker work a little bit more safely. Some people's limiting beliefs come from really difficult childhood experiences. So, we can, using hypnosis, because I'm a therapist as well as a coach, a trainer, I can help them to neutralize some of those more difficult experiences and beliefs if that's present for them. And we can do that safely with hypnosis. But more generally, I use it to help once they've got the new stories in place, what we can do is we can go in there and use hypnosis to weaken the old stories, the old limiting beliefs, and to strengthen and embed the new ones. So it's a really powerful tool.
Wow.
And I all of my one-to-one clients and most of my group work. And I also do, when I go into corporates, I do kind of lunch and learn mindset training sessions. I always start with a little guided visualization, which is basically hypnosis, to prove to them that our thoughts create our reality. And once we've done that little first 3 minutes of work, I've got them. They believe it, they've seen it, they understand it, and then they're prepared with them. So it's a fantastically useful tool.
Okay, now what you've just said in the last 5 minutes is just so powerfully drawn me in. It's I want to be a part of this. I want to touch this. I want to figure out more. It's fascinating. But when I see mindset training, it doesn't jump off the page to me. And it might not to a whole lot of people if they don't know more about it. Who are the people? I'm sure we could say it's for everybody, but who are the people that should be actually self-identifying as, this is probably for me. This is something that could be helping me.
Okay. So I tend to talk to people who want to change the world in some way, who know they were born for something more, and they tend to be highly sensitive persons, HSP. There is a self-test if anybody is interested in finding out if you are a highly sensitive person, but it comes with all these gifts. So I work with highly sensitive game changers and people like me who are highly sensitive and high sensation seeking. I call us sensitive upstarts, because we're out there to change the world and we're not asking anyone's permission to do that. So the messaging is, if you are somebody who wants to be more, be the more that you know you're capable of, but you are stuck in some way, then I can help you to get unstuck. I can help you to connect to your big vision and magnify, skyrocket your impact. But first of all, we need to identify and get rid of what's making you stuck.
Yeah.
Those are my people.
So it's a matter of just getting that getting that message out there so people actually know, like, yeah, it's me. Now,
a new website being built at the moment, which is going to have that messaging in it, really. It's sensitive game changers who know they were born for something more, who want to magnify their impact, but who feel stuck. That's where I'm kind of going.
Now, one of the things that you had mentioned, and you and I have actually spoken about this before, is the whole issue around highly sensitive and the term sensitive. And prior to our conversation, I mean, I hate to sound insensitive, but
no.
you know, I myself have thought people who, I'm going to sound like a real dick, but, but people are like, oh, I'm highly sensitive. I kind of thought, that's kind of egocentrically manipulative, in that you are demanding that we kind of meet, you know, your needs on an emotional level. Catch you later. But well, obviously it's more than that. And I was really surprised you asked me to check out the link in the quiz. And I have never considered myself to be a sensitive person, but so what is, can you unpack a little bit the whole thing of highly sensitive? And it's not just like that whole North American thing now of like snowflake.
Yeah. Well, I've been writing a book that was going to be called Snowflake Power, but it is no longer. It's not going to be called the superpower sensitivity. So I discovered.
Okay, wait a minute. You're writing a book?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
At least one. But I'm writing a book called The Superpower of Sensitivity, because I'm a stand-up advocate for this quality, and I haven't always been. I probably found out about HSP, highly sensitive person, about 7 years ago when I was training, and during an exercise that we were doing during therapy school, it had an outcome, and one of our tutors said, I'm sure Caroline won't mind me saying that she's a classic highly sensitive person. And I thought, oh my God, anyway, I dismissed that. I just put that away. Although it did resonate on some level. And then a few days later, one of our other tutors just dropped into conversation, of course, I'm a highly sensitive person. And my little, bullshit fairy here was, excuse me, ladies, sorry about that. My little fairy said, oh, highly sensitive person, ooh, and I was massively in judgment at that point.
Yes.
Then at this point, I thought, well, that's twice in 2 weeks I've heard this term. I need to look it up. That's when I discovered it was a thing. It's a genetic characteristic that impacts 15 to 20% of the population, plus over 100 different animal species. I mean, fruit flies have 20% of individuals who are highly sensitive.
There are highly sensitive fruit flies in my kitchen as we speak.
Yeah, it's this evolutionary survival strategy, because if we were all warriors, we'd all be dead. So you needed people in the tribe, especially when we were evolving, and we were growing and evolving in difficult times. We needed people in the tribe who were more observant, who noticed subtle details that other people didn't, who had intuition, who had empathic connection to other people, who could connect deeply, who noticed when people were lying, who understood instinctively about human behavior and about animal behavior and things like that. We needed people like that. They were the shaman, they were the medicine women, they were the witches, they were the carers and the healers, they were the priestly advisors. And now, we're still around. So it's a genetic characteristic. It's 15 to 20% of people. And I probably spent 5 years looking for different words to describe it, because I was thinking, God, not sensitivity, please. And finally, I just faced up to it, and I thought, that's what it is. Why am I running away from it? Why am I trying to call it high responsiveness or, radical tenderness? Why am I trying to find
radical tenderness? I love that. Well,
so now it's about highly sensitive people with radical talents, radical skills, radical superpowers, because creativity, high levels of creativity and imagination, intuition, empathy, real problem solving abilities come with imagination and this skill of noticing. We notice everything. But it does mean, that if everyone has this kind of bucket of tolerance in the day of what we can deal with, our bucket fills up faster for most people, because we're noticing and processing at such a level of depth, reflecting, overthinking, like loads of things. So it does mean that we can get overwhelmed faster than people who are not HSPs. And also I should say that just because you're not genetically an HSP does not mean you're not sensitive. We're talking about a collection of traits that make up this genetic characteristic, but there are, of course, everyone is on this spectrum somewhere in terms of their environmental sensitivity, their emotional sensitivity. It's just that there's this collection of 4 characteristics: depth of observation, overstimulability, this tendency to become overstimulated when there's a lot going on, emotional responsiveness, and empathy and sensory sensitivity and noticing subtle details. Those characteristics are part of the genetic character trait of being a highly sensitive person.
Now,
So,
question.
yeah.
That sounds like you are just like somebody that's like that is just like so busy being sensitive and then very quickly overwhelmed. Isn't that a bit of a disadvantage for somebody who is an entrepreneur running their business? Because that can be very overwhelming. So is that not?
It can be. And that is why I think that self-awareness is the world's the greatest skill that we can learn is to know ourselves. Because when we know ourselves, and what I do with my clients who are HSPs is I help them to map out what sensitivity looks like for them. Because it doesn't mean we're wet, it doesn't mean we're boring, it doesn't mean we're sad sacks, we are just people who happen to have this heightened responsiveness to everything. And when you know what yours looks like, and I've been able to map mine so I know what it looks like, then you can build in the self-care measures that you need to recover, to recharge your batteries, to avoid overwhelm and burnout. Because some research I did, I researched 200 entrepreneurs and discovered that highly sensitive people face twice the risk of work-related burnout, probably life-related burnout. But when we know ourselves, when we've mapped our trait, our characteristic, we can learn how to use our superpowers without burning out. I've just actually done that myself. I've had 2 weeks of intense social activity around a family wedding and house guests while a lot else was going on. And I knew in advance that this was going to test me to my limits and that I had to build in time for self-care. And I still got it slightly wrong, so I had a migraine all day yesterday.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on. It's at short notice, actually. This was yesterday call out. Caroline,
I'm fine today.
Interview you for quite a while, and
my resistance is low. You got me at a good time. My resistance was low, but once you understand who you are and how you work, and this goes for everybody, not just highly sensitive people. Once you kind of map out what life looks like to you and how you respond, how your mind responds, emotionally you respond, then you can kind of build in what you need to keep you healthy.
So we're talking about highly sensitive people.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just highly sensitive people that really benefit from a mindset training? Are people who aren't highly sensitive, can they just kind of like wind themselves up?
Everybody would benefit from learning how to become more self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
is that what mindset training is?
Mindset training. Essentially, it's learning how to listen to the voice in your head, because 95% of it is unconscious. And if something's unconscious, if we're playing the same script over and over again, and we're not conscious of it, when it's like being on autopilot, it's like cruise control. You can't change your speed on cruise control. You have to put yourself back into manual to be able to change what's going on. And that's the same in your mind. When 95% of it is automatic on autopilot, it's unconscious, we can't change. And what's going on in our mind drives our emotions and our behavior. So it drives what life looks like for us. But when we are able to tap in and understand what's going on, understand at any moment what story you're telling yourself about what's going on, then you can change the story.
So how long does that take when, say, a business owner that takes part in your training? How long does it take for them? This sounds like to a point where they have the techniques or some kind of ability to do just that and impact their life and business. Is that like months and months?
It really depends on the person, but I have a kind of process that I work through. And some people get it much quicker than others. There's a book called Tasha Eurich, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about self-awareness. And her research showed that when you ask 100 people whether they're self-aware or not, 95 will say, yeah, I'm self-aware, but only about 10 to 15% actually are. So there's this general...
Where is the difference between the perception of, also I'm self-aware, and like, what is the...
Essentially, they're self-conscious. They're not self-aware.
What's the difference?
Self-consciousness is about feeling that the world is looking at you and seeing your life, seeing life from your own perspective and only your perspective. It's like having those blinkers on and you're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking of you. You're self-conscious about that. Self-awareness is knowing yourself and having an objective view of how the world sees you. It's just the most useful life skill, because when you can tap in and hear what's going on, and the 85% who aren't self-aware have got all these stories about how the world sees them and what people are thinking of them, but they don't necessarily bear any reality to the truth. So self-awareness helps you to understand at a relatively objective level, what's going on in your head, how your thoughts are impacting your feelings and behavior, and a realistic idea of your impact on the world and how the world sees you. It's just a highly valuable skill. So some people have it, some people don't, but I found that the process that works best for me now if I'm working one-to-one with somebody, is we do 4 half-day sessions. So we have a 2-hour call where they tell me their life story from cradle to here to now. And often they're their own therapist during that, because it's very rare that you have a chance to sit and talk about yourself for 2 hours to somebody who is interested and non-judgmental. And often, my clients will go, oh my God, that thing there, that probably is linked to that there. And do you think there's a connection? And they're already making those connections, especially the HSPs who are good at spotting patterns. But because we don't have that opportunity to tell our stories like that very often to someone, as I say, who's interested and non-judgmental, we don't get that chance. So we have that 2-hour story session, and then we do this deep dive. So it's 4 4-hour sessions, and we meet for half a day. We get in the room and I go through the process. It's 1 a month for 4 months. And then 2 weeks after that, we have a call just to kind of consolidate where we are, find out how they've been since the last session. So the whole thing takes about 4 months for them to be equipped with a process that they can use to help themselves in any situation, to recognize what's going on, to recognize where the blocks are, and to do something about it, to put it right. And then occasionally we'll have a bit of a top up. I've got one client who every 3 or 4 months she'll just have an hour's conversation just to kind of top up. Because it's for life. It's not a process you can learn now and then just let go of. It is something that we need to. We've got all these neural pathways, which are our old habits, and those never go away. What we can do is weaken them so they become like these old cracked roadways with grass growing up through them. They don't get used. But what tends to happen is that we default to old behaviors when we're stressed. So having mindset training and having accountability going forward helps us to create these new superhighways that we can travel down with ease. But we do have to keep mindful of the fact that those old ones still exist. And anybody who tells you can get rid of a habit for life and it's just gone, they're just not telling you the truth, because there is a physical concrete roadway in your brain for that old habit. And if you don't maintain the new one, you will revert to the old one. So I don't mean to put a downer on everything, because
it's realistic that thing we have, in our lifetime. Is like, here's a pill, take this, then you're good, or here's the answer, the silver bullet.
No magic bullet. So I would say that the process I found most useful is this series of deep dives, and you can't have them every week. I've got clients that go, oh, does it have to take that long? I say, no, we can probably do it in 3 months, possibly 2 months, but I wouldn't do it to them. Having a 4-hour session every week would just be too much intensity, and your mind wouldn't be able to catch up and consolidate the learnings and start laying down those new neural pathways. And that's where the hypnosis helps so much as well, because, we've got inner resistance to letting go of these beliefs that we've had for decades, all our lives.
And we don't even know we have them.
Yeah, exactly. We inherit those messages in childhood, and it does. Oh, I've got 15% battery power. So technology not on my side. We should be fine. But those neural pathways are deeply embedded, and it takes work. And that's where hypnosis can really help to loosen the grip of those old stories.
Okay, I have a question before your battery runs out. So what with the people that you work with, entrepreneurs and business people, what is the number one thing that you're seeing in terms of either a block or just like a repetitive pattern of like, yes, this is something that's standing in your way?
So much of it comes down to low self-worth. That's the thing I see over and over again, is while they've got the enthusiasm and the excitement and the training and the know-how and the skills and the equipment to go off and be the more that they're capable of being, there's the little voice, that little bullshit fairy who's just going, you're not good enough. Why would anybody listen to you? Why would anybody come to you when there's so many other people doing this better known? Why would anybody pay you money to do this? It's low self-worth is the thing that I find I bump into over and over again.
And we did actually link to one of your articles, a blog post you had written about imposter syndrome. So that's tying that whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It occurs to me I should have added Caroline Ferguson and the bullshit fairies in the title of this. I love that phrase. So no, not everybody is either ready or able to partake of a 3 to 4 month program right now on this. Is there anything that business owners can be putting into place, or anything, a technique or a practice or something? What could you share? So the most valuable thing I share is also the easiest thing. Oh, cool.
I'm going to backtrack on that. Is the simplest thing.
Okay.
Because all the great simple stuff is just not necessarily easy, especially when it comes to what's between your ears. Because we're born with the most complex thing in the universe inside our skulls, the human brain, the most complex. And when you add in the mind, which is our consciousness, Oh my God, the complexity. And yet we're never taught how to drive this. When we go to school, we're taught how to learn facts, how to argue, how to form criticism, but we're never taught how to think, and we're never taught how this works. And we're only really scratching the surface now about how it works. But anyway, to go back to your question, 3 questions, okay? The most valuable thing I can teach anybody. And that is when you're in any situation and the flag is your emotions. You know, that's your warning flag. That's your sign to pay attention, because when we feel out of emotional equilibrium, so anything other than positive or neutral emotions, so when we feel challenged, wound up, stressed, difficult, unhappy, hurt, sad, jealous, anxious, whatever, you know, that's the flag. When you feel emotionally uncomfortable, tune in and you ask yourself 3 questions. Question number 1, what is the story I am telling myself about this situation? So say it's to do with, you know, trying to get your technology sorted out if you're an online business person. You know, what's the story? The story might be, I don't know how to do this. It's going to be too expensive to get someone in. Other people are doing it better. I don't understand it. Do I have to do, you know, there will be lots of stories about anything that makes us uncomfortable. So number 1, it's dig out those stories and hear those limiting beliefs. Number 2, so 1 is understanding, the self-awareness to understand what your position is. And if we've got all of those stories which are holding us back, you know, we're not going to be able to be optimistic and positive and forward-looking about these things. So just even identifying the stories means you can start to try and change them. So number 1, what is the story I'm telling myself about the situation?
I'm writing all this down here in the comments while you're saying this.
Okay. Number 2, what would a good outcome look like? Now, we're not talking about the ideal outcome or the best long-term outcome or the perfect outcome. We're talking right now in this situation where I feel uncomfortable. What would a good outcome look like in this situation? So going back to the technology thing, you know, the first good outcome would be that I stop feeling stressed about this, that actually I stop putting blocks in my way. That would be a good outcome because that would free me up to take action. Another good outcome might be, right, I will go and ask for recommendations for a technical person who doesn't charge the earth. That might be a good outcome, just to have that conversation. You know, another outcome might be to actually go and take some action to stop feeling so stuck. You know, that might be a good outcome. So what we're looking for is an immediate outcome that is better than the one you're in, a decent outcome that enables you, that for which you can take immediate action. Because that's, you know, that's the third question is, what can I do right now that will help me to make that outcome a reality? And remember, in terms of taking action, changing the way you think is an action. So, right, I know that the story I'm telling myself is that technology is really difficult and really expensive. Okay, so that's the answer to question number 1 in this situation. Question number 2, what would a good outcome look like? Well, it's to stop feeling so crap about this and to make a phone call to somebody I met at a networking group who does this for a living and have a conversation with her. Okay, that would be a good outcome. That's an action I can, you know. And so the question number 3, what action can I take? I can do that action. I've identified that, you know, talking to this person might help me, writing an email to my clients and trying it out might help me. Third is go and take that action. Go and do it. Baby steps. Even
so
something.
Those 3 things, that's kind of like your antidote when everything is just going sideways.
When you are
calm down and ask those 3 questions.
Yeah, you're in that emotional spiral. It's, what's the story I'm telling myself? So how am I keeping myself stuck here? What would a good outcome look like that will help me to get unstuck? And what is the action that I can take to make that outcome happen? And remember that one of the actions you can take is to change your story from this is too hard to, well, this is a bit challenging, but I'm capable. You know?
I'm setting about solving this problem.
I'm able to get myself unstuck. You know, so changing that story. And this, when I'm talking about changing the story, I don't mean turning into this wild positive thinker, because I think relentless positive thinking is as negative and dangerous actually as relentless negative.
What? Really? I mean, I'm glad to hear that, because, you know, like ongoing positivity is almost like,
yeah, I think we need to have an optirealistic approach.
Say again, an
optirealist. I'm an optirealist.
I love that.
So where you approach life with positive energy, but you are conscious and prepared for the crap that might turn up, you know, so that you acknowledge that the world doesn't always give you what you want. So you have that realism, but you still approach it with positive energy. So I call it an optirealist.
I love that. Well, you've just added 2 new terms to my dictionary. One's the bullshit fairies. The other one is the What?
And, well, they're linked. Optirealist.
Optirealist. I love it.
They are linked, because actually the bullshit fairy, if you're relentlessly positive, and that's why affirmations don't work for a lot of people. It's, I'm healthy, wealthy, wise, and slim. For somebody who doesn't feel like that, the bullshit fairy is going to go, no, you're not. No. So your own inner resistance is not going to work with a lot of affirmations and things. You have to kind of sneak up on it and ask the question, how am I so healthy, wealthy, wise, and slim? And then your mind has to answer the question, and it bypasses. That's another little trick, by the way.
Or the bullshit fairy has to sign off on this.
Yeah. So if you ask us as a question, the bullshit fairy can't say that's not true, because a question is a question, and the bullshit fairy has to go try and find an answer. That is a guy called Noah St. John. He's come up with this method called affirmations, and goodness me, I wish he'd chosen a different name, but they are basically affirmations posed as a question, and they bypass the bullshit fairy. And because when you ask yourself a question, your mind has no choice but to try and answer it. So have a little look into affirmations. Same as affirmations, but with an O. And it's a guy called Noah St. John who came up with that concept, and it's genius. It's genius. But yeah, so the bullshit fairy does not like relentless positivity, and it won't accept it in many people, because it's like, no, I can't agree with that. And if you're telling yourself something that your inner voice doesn't agree with, it's not going to work for you.
So that's one of my takeaways today, is actually employ your bullshit fairy.
Yeah.
By asking it questions rather than passing these positive affirmations by it, and make it work for you in life and in your business. Okay, bullshit fairy, what's the answer to this?
Exactly. So we're covering lots of ground here, but I think there are 3 ways in which we can communicate with our unconscious mind. One is by asking questions, and the more detailed and deliberate you can make that question, the better. Give details. How do I do this by such and such a date? I would like you to provide me with answers to that. Second way is by setting challenges. So you can say, I would like to, for example, if it's a weight loss thing, I would like to lose 7 pounds within a month. And then you can use the question. So that's my challenge. I'd like to lose 7 pounds within a month in the simplest way that doesn't cause me too many problems. And then you employ the question as well. How should I do that, bullshit fairy? How would that work for me? What do I have to do? Use 2 methods there. And the third way is commands. So we have questions, challenges, and commands. And your mind has no choice but to try and respond to those. It won't necessarily do it for you. You have to take action as well. Use the 3 questions that I asked before. What story am I telling myself about losing weight within a month?
What would a good outlook look like?
What would a good outcome look like? And what action can I take in terms of changing my thoughts, and also taking physical action to make that thing happen? So it's all about self-awareness and how we communicate with ourselves and how we use our mindset to help us achieve what we want to do. And we just never get taught these kind of tools and methods. I've made all of this stuff up as I've observed and as I've been trained, but of course it's out there as well. I think we'll come up with some fantastic original idea only to find out that somebody else has had it too. There's very little that's original, but it's all about finding processes and steps that make sense to us, and that's simple to implement. So that, I would say, the 3-question method is the most valuable thing that I teach my clients, and I'm just giving it away to everyone for free because.
Well, thank you for that. Well, listen, I'm going to jump off now. I will be talking with you, and thank you so much. That was really great. I've put already under this live, I've put the 3 questions that we entrepreneurs or people in general, not that we're not people, can ask themselves when they're in that hard place. And thank you so much for sharing that with us.
And if anyone wants to know if you're an HSP, there's a website by a lady called Dr. Elaine Aron who created the term, and the website is hsperson.com, and you'll find a self-test on there for sensitivity and also for sensation seeking, if that, that kind of what's the word? Chimed with you. And I'm also part of the online summit, the online sensitivity summit. So if anyone's interested.
When is that happening?
And it's happening from the 16th of September, and there's, I think, about 30 of us.
What?
Being interviewed about all sorts of aspects of sensitivity. So you can find the link on my profile. I'm not running it. I'm just an interviewer.
How about we put the link in this under this live here, because I think that's really fascinating. I think
it really will be. Some of the people who are speaking are amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
And hopefully your migraine is totally gone. I suspect it's not gone yet, but thank you so much for your time and all the interesting information you gave us.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Talk to you soon. All right.
Bye.
Bye.